Walking in the Shadows is the first new Grim Reaper album since Rock You to Hell from 1987. When did the recording process for this album begin, and what were some of the delays in its release?
It started around 3 years ago. The reason that it took so long is because we had several lineup changes, and that basically put it did well. It did. It put the hold ups on it. Firstly, we changed drummer, and then Chaz, the bass player, was from the US, and he returned home, and really it was almost impossible for us to work with Chaz. Chaz is still with us in some respects. He's sort of like taken a back burner to it all, but we had a new guy called Martin Trail. He did the album and is basically taking Chaz's place, unless we have a problem where Martin can't make it. Chaz will step in.
The same band also performs under your name, the Steve Grimmett Band, and released an album in 2006. Why did you decide to put this album out under the Grim Reaper name?
I don't know where you're getting your information from, because everybody that I've done interviews so far, all that information is wrong, actually. The only person that is in the lineup that was with the Steve Grimmett Band is Ian Nash, the guitarist. The other guys are all weren't on the album at all, and the other guys, Paul White, the drummer, and Martin Trail, the bass player, are and have only ever played for Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper.
That's interesting because the Grim Reaper page on the Metal Archives, the Encyclopedia Metallicum, says that it's the same band.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know who put that on. It wasn't me.
I have no idea.
No, what I've just told you is basically what happened with the Steve Grimmett Band. The drummer was Pete Newdeck, who actually mixed Walking in the Shadows. Who was the bass player? I can't remember his name. Won't come to me. But yeah, so the rhythm section was totally different. Paul, the drummer, has been with me for best part of 3 years, actually. And Martin has been with us for about the last 6 months.
Is there a legal distinction, if any, between the name Grim Reaper and Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper?
Well, the reason that Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper exists is because when we were asked to do Grim Reaper shows, I got in touch with Nick to see if he wanted to join us, but the guy's a busy guy. He works for Marshall in the States, and it was almost impossible for him to do a lot of live shows that we were being asked to do. So we came up with this. It would be Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper, then no one would be confused thinking it was a reunion. So that's how it has been, and that's how it's going to stay. Nick does join us every so often. I think he's joined us for about 3 or 4 shows so far. So there's no animosity. It's just, and it's not really even a legal thing, to be fair. It's just something that we came up between us, and something that because I've got a lot of respect for Nick, and we both have for each other, that I'm honouring that, and that's the way it'll stay.
Besides fronting Onslaught and Lion's Heart, what else did you do musically when Grim Reaper or your solo band weren't active?
Just basically those, really. I didn't do a huge amount in the 90s at all. I did Lion's Heart, obviously, but that really, apart from the first album, didn't really go as well as I hoped it would do. The first album did great in Japan, and we toured Japan. That was fantastic, but really haven't done a huge amount since start of 2000, really. So I sat doing nothing really for a long time. Obviously had these other bands and stuff, but nothing really came out of them.
So Lion's Heart is no longer active?
No, it's not. No, I did 4 albums with Lion's Heart, and you never know. I might resurrect that for another album. I may do the Steve Grimmett band thing again, but at the moment I'm not. So, but you never know. They're not defunct by any small chance. That they are, that and could be revived at any time.
On one of your Facebook posts, you mentioned that you've never had royalties for the first 3 Grim Reaper albums, and you're still not getting them to this day. Did this have anything to do with the Ebony Records deal?
Yeah, kinda. It was it was all sort of part and parcel of that, and other legalities which I can't really go into at the moment. But basically, they are still being collected by RCA or Sony, whoever owns RCA now, and they're just not paying them out. I am chasing it. I am trying to get it sorted, but it's not proving impossible, but it's very, very difficult.
What advice do you give to musicians to protect themselves?
Get a lawyer, and a good lawyer. That is my first bit of advice. They would really, really, every I must be dotted and every T must be crossed in any contract these days. And we have a thing, I don't know if you have it, in England we have a union called the Musicians Union, and I'm a part of that, or I am a member of that, and I can go to them with any problems normally. doing what I'm doing, trying to get my money from the 80s, they're not really that keen, because it's an expensive process, but they are very, very helpful. They will give me advice and all that sort of thing, so that's worth it. But mainly, get yourself a lawyer, and that's the best advice I can give you.
Do you think that with the internet being so accessible now, it's easier for bands to do research, or do you think it's more difficult for them because there's less money in the actual record sales?
It's probably harder, because lots of things have changed within record industry. One being, or the major one being, is that nobody will pay for an album anymore, and basically you have to come up with a finished article, you have to come up with finished artwork and all that stuff before anybody will take it on board, and it will more than likely only ever be an independent label. So that is part and parcel of the problem. We have now, obviously, like you say, we have the internet, which is a major bonus for promoting your own stuff. I'm lucky in the fact that dissidents do a major part of that for us, although we are still doing it ourselves, with Facebook and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. So it's a really good thing, and we cannot do without it these days. Where we had music magazines all over the place years ago, sales have majorly dropped on most magazines, and using the internet is probably one of the only ways we can do things these days.
What are some of the major differences between touring now and touring during the 80s?
Nothing really. No, not a lot. There was a lot of money back in the 80s. People were throwing money at you left, right and centre. That's not happening anymore. Our tours are always self-funded. That way we end up with not owing anybody any money. And instead of using a tour bus, we'd be using an RV, and that, or hotels and a splitter bus or something like that. So that sort of thing has changed, but really turning up and doing your shows, really not a huge amount different. There are, I suppose, really the only thing are festivals. We do have a lot of festivals worldwide now, which we didn't have before. I enjoy playing those. In fact, I'm playing one this weekend in France, and I do enjoy those. So that's probably about the only differences, really.
Was Rock You to Hell written about the PMRC?
Yes. Yes, it certainly was. Well, not just them, it was everybody. I've recently found out we as Grim Reaper escaped a lawsuit some time ago because a reverend, I think he was in Maryland, I think so, was going to sue us because we had hellish lyrics and all that sort of thing, and they thought we were devil worshippers. And of course, that's so far from the truth, it's unreal. And if him being a reverend, if he'd have read the lyrics to "See You in Hell," he'd have seen that was basically a Bible story about the temptation of Christ. But we didn't get that done. But this PMRC thing, it's they don't do that to books, do they? Or didn't do that to books. And then so why the music? I don't get it. So, yes, but yes, the answer to your question is yes, it was.
Do you feel that nowadays a band having, certain imagery isn't as much of a big deal today as it was back then? Do you think there's more acceptance for that?
Yeah, I think there probably is. But, I mean, I still can't play in the South in the States because I am still a devil worshipper, apparently. but yeah. Yeah, yes, I think it's become much more accepted.
One of your music videos was featured on Beavis and Butthead. Did that bring Grim Reaper a lot of exposure?
Yes, it did. But all 3 videos were on there, actually, because it's a well chalked up story that the reason "See You in Hell" was on there is because the producer of the show really liked Grim Reaper, and he thought he was going to have an altercation with us at one point. And then we were like, it's fantastic we're on there. Why would you be worried that you put us on there? And he was like, I only did it because I really love you guys. So he put all 3 on. We're still the only band to have all of the videos put on Beavis and Butthead. And we thought it was a really cool thing, but it wasn't really that did it. It was MTV. They put our video for "See You in Hell" on, and they were only going to play it once and once only. But they put a questionnaire on after. Is this the sort of thing you want to see more of, or blah 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 blah? And they had such an overwhelming response that they put it on maximum rotation. So it was on 7 days a week, 7 times a day, and there you have it. That's really what did it. But it obviously, Beavis and Butthead keep things alive because it's still being played. It's still being aired on TV. Especially in the UK. I don't know about the States, but it certainly is here, and everywhere else.
Your vocal work is very impressive. What is your musical background, and did you have any formal vocal training?
No. No, I didn't. Because people ask me that, you've still got the pipes, how come, what do you do, what's the secret ingredient to that? Well, it's not, it's a given gift, and up till about 4 years ago, I abused it, really, and I ended up mid-90s getting vocal nodes, and I had to have an operation to get rid of those. And ever since then, I've really developed a technique for singing live, and I think that's done it, because I'm actually singing a lot better than I ever did, especially as a 20-year-old in the 80s. I'm singing better than I was in the 80s now, and but I gave up smoking, and I've pretty much given up drinking, although I still do. So it's a question of making sure I get enough sleep, and because it's not an instrument, it's a physical thing. So I have to be on the ball, on my game for making sure that we do every show we've been booked to do.
What is the one album or song that made you decide you wanted to pursue heavy metal?
Judas Priest, for sure. Although I wasn't a major fan of heavy metal then, but I sort of joined a band. Well, it was Musica, and they wanted to do a song called Starbreaker by Judas Priest, and I was like, right, okay, well, I don't know it, so I had to get a copy of the album, and then learn it. I was listening to it, I was thinking, oh god, this guy is just like a god. And then I opened my mouth and found out I could do it as well. So so I have to say Judas Priest and Rob Halford to start off with got me into it, but then there's a lot more singers out there that I like for their tonal qualities and stuff that they do, rather than screaming blue murder basically. So like Dio and sad loss there, White Snake, David Coverdale of White Snake. I also like a kind of new guy called Chris Daughtry. He was in an American version of what was it called?
American Idol?
No, not. It might have been, but it could have been the X Factor. It was one of those two anyway, and basically he came third in one of the competitions, and I really liked his voice then. And then he came out with these albums, and I've got every single album. He's got an incredible voice, anybody that can sing a song and tell the story from the heart, I like.
Do you listen to any newer metal bands, or even just newer bands in general besides Daughtry?
Yeah, I do. I can't say that anything really grabs my attention, but I do listen to it. I mean, being on tour, I get given at least 10 albums to listen to, and I do listen to them all. And if I really like them, then I'll get in touch with the guys and say, I really like this, blah, 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 blah. But to be perfectly honest with you, there's nothing really grabs my attention these days. And I think that's possibly why we're still doing what we do, because there isn't this, a continuation of people writing the same sort of stuff that we're doing and did in the past.
How do you feel about being labeled one of the new wave of British heavy metal bands, like such an influential label in terms of metal?
Yeah, that's okay. I don't mind that. Certainly when we were doing it, we didn't realise that we were part of it. It's something that we were labelled as by the press here, I think. It's okay. I'm not really sure what it means, to be perfectly honest with you, but yeah, I'll take that.
Do you think there has been a resurgence of popularity or interest in the new wave of British heavy metal bands with the internet?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, definitely, for absolutely sure, because I can now do a tour. It's now worth bringing out an album, and if we can do it, we're doing. I think we start very early October. We're doing 2 months in the States, and once we get back, I think it's very early December. We've got one show here, and then we're out to in early January, first week in January, we're out to South America for a month, and that's all via internet stuff. They can get onto our site, they can do whatever, they can find out exactly what we're doing, what we're up to. They can even buy the old vinyl from there, because it is definitely a whole new audience. It's teenagers, 20-30-year-olds that are coming to the shows, and not people of my age, which is really weird. But the other thing is the fact that they're coming with old vinyl, these teenagers are coming with old vinyl for us to sign, and that is just an amazing thing, to still have your music from 30 years ago being signed by, or being asked to sign by a teenager. It's really weird, but and of course then there's the advent of CDs and stuff, so they can quite readily they're readily available these days. So yeah, it's good, really, really good.
I had fans submit questions for you, and one of them was, can you explain the actual plot, if one exists, behind the song Suck It and See?
I'm always asked this. In England, you know what a double entendre is, or double entendre. It's basically something that has two meanings, and suck it and see here is like, okay, well, let's just give it a go and see what happens. But obviously the lyrics point slightly differently, but it's still basically that's what it is. It's still like, we'll give it a go.
One of the Wikipedia pages say that it's based on vampires.
What, Suck It and See?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's a good story. I'll use that one. Yeah.
So, do you have any future plans after the upcoming tours?
Yes, obviously we're coming to the States, doing 2 months there. We got a few shows in December in England, and then we have, say, beginning of January, we have a month in South America. So that's like 7 or 9 countries in South America, Brazil and all that. And then we have loads of festivals to do from that point onwards. In Europe, and we are also looking at Japan, Australia and New Zealand as a tour. That will probably be, I don't know, March or April time. So yeah, we're busy boys.
All right, is there anything you'd like to tell any fans who might be listening?
I would, yes. Thank you for your continued support to my older generation of fans, and thank you to the younger generations for believing in what Grim Reaper is all about. If you come to a show, stick around after the show, because we'll come and sign stuff for you, and by way of thanking you for your support. And hopefully we'll see you soon.